How are we all doing today, guys? We're gonna do some subscriber replay analysis. I'm not sure if you were the one who did this last week as well. Maybe you were. Like, some Zerg did this last week as well versus Terran. And it's... You can only really do this versus Terran on maps where there's no Reaper jump spot. Because you won't have a queen in the main when you go for this fast third. Or maybe you're going for the queens first, you're just chilling with the drone here. No, you're not going for the hatchery. Yeah, so the problem now is that, well, you won't have a queen in the natural. Luckily he went marine first, so it's fine. But if there was a Reaper right now, like, we couldn't mine from the natural at all. Because there's gonna be a Reaper here. The queen is not finishing, so you can just dance around here for like forever, basically, with the Reaper. We're gonna have a bad time. And if we make the queen down here, then if it goes into the main base, it's gonna be rough. But in general, if you're going for this fast third base, like, I don't think you should do it in CBT ever, unless there's a map where there's no Reaper jump spot. But when we do end up going for this, we need to delay our gas mining a bit. And we should delay this overload too. This overload should be made on like 25 supply. Because look at how much oversupply you're gonna have right now when this overload finishes. Like, you're 21 out of 36. So that's not great. It's more important that you save money, spend your larva, get your queen started, get your settling started. It's very strange. He made the CC on the high ground, I guess. Yeah, it's a very strange opener from this guy. Sending all the links across the map is a bit risky, just because if there's Hellions and they get caught without speed, you're gonna lose them all. Yeah, so just send one across the map to scout. You can maybe hide the rest, like outside is natural, and then you can do a run by when you see the Hellions move out, but yeah, in general. And we kind of overmade Zerglings here as well. We would prefer literally just been droning. Maybe like 10 Zerglings would have been fine. Yeah. Where's this overload going? Yeah, we want to make sure that we send our overlords out. Like, you're doing a good job with these two, but you should have like one here, maybe one here, maybe one here, one down here. So you always want to make sure that, like, when these overlords come out, you rally them right away. What is the Terran doing, actually? Yeah, I would be very confused this game. I would be very confused this game. Like, I'm looking at the replay and I have no idea what's going on by this turn. So he makes a supply depot here instead of here. Interesting. He makes an eBay that he doesn't use. Man, I would be so confused if I play versus this. Yeah, I would think I would be playing versus 3cc for sure, in this scenario. But yeah, in general, like, we always want to make sure we spend our larva right. Basic economy, basic early game economy. We want to make sure that when we have larva, we want to be able to spend it into drones as fast as possible. Going for the lair is fine, baiting this is fine. But yeah, we just want faster saturation on our third base. And like you can see, because we don't have any overload over here, the Hellions comes in and pokes at us, right? And we lose a couple of drones, so maybe we shouldn't. Just having like something over here, something over here. Just your queens can be ready for the Hellions. And you can move your links around too. Roachhorn and Baiting Nest. This is interesting. In general, you don't need both. You only need one of them. Unless you're like suspecting that it's Mech, you could maybe get a Roachhorn here, but in general, I would just one of them is fine. He's making 2 more CCs. Okay. Roach speed and baiting speed. Yeah, our evos are very late this game. Like basically, you would want the evos to line up so that whenever you have like 250 gas after, like basically you could start your evos right here. Like I think instead of this roach one, if you just start a double evo, that would be a lot better. That way you could start baning speed in 1-1. Yeah, I remember it was a little bit annoying. Creep spray could be a bit better for sure, especially now when the Hellions are dead. Like as soon as he loses the Hellions, you should be like spamming tumors everywhere, because now there's nothing to stop the tumors from expanding. Right? Yeah, you're doing it now. That's good. Excuse me. He is going into Mech. It's very interesting. Yeah, we're overmaking army here a little bit. Like, we haven't really scouted at all. Like, we see a PF in his natural. So, we know he's probably playing Mech. But, like, overall, like, if we scouted a little bit better, we saw that he had 4 bases. We would know we don't need this many units right now. We could be focusing on getting a faster 5th base, making sure this base is fully saturated, going up to Hive. Our upgrades very much needed here. Yeah, but yeah, to be honest, like you could, if you had vision of these bases, you could just go and kill them. Like even if it's a PF, like there's so much he can do. Yeah, now you're drawing a bit more. That's good. Yeah, we're really lacking upgrades here. But yeah, there's something you can do to stop this. You can kill this base too, yeah. Yeah, this looks like it should be a very easy win for you. Like, sure, this is a little bit annoying, but now you should just remake the drones that you lost in that exchange. And also you're spreading overlords like, yeah, like that on his bases. It's good. Yeah. Yeah, not having an overseer with your army is a bit of a big mistake. But you're getting all the ravens. Losing a lot for it though, but yeah. You lost a lot to Widow Mines just because you didn't have an overseer with your army. So you want to make sure that you always have an overseer with your army, even if there's no Widow Mines. If you ever like try to push a base, let's say that there's a tank on the high ground here, you need something for high ground vision. So you should always have an overseer with your army, even if there's no Widow Mines. But yeah, in general here, like we just need to redrone. Yeah, we got kind of overambitious there and just like the no overseer hurt us really bad. And here, this started out fine, I think. What you're doing right now, like this is a very good trade for you. But here maybe you should just back away. We end up losing a lot of grappers there at the end. Once the auto turrets go down. Yeah, and then we also don't have any upgrades, so that's also a problem. Yeah, our Don't Card isn't quite what it should be. Do we have an overseer with our army now? I hope so. Okay, now we're starting to get on. Yeah, it's very important that you get overseers. Yeah, our drone count is a lot lower than it should be. You want to be at like almost 100 drones here in this scenario. And yeah, to be honest, if you had an overseer with your army earlier, the game would have just ended here. And it should be really hard for him to expand in this scenario. Like, your creep spread should be a lot better. So that way you have a lot easier time to just deny his bases. And Like, if you wanted, you could get a couple infestors with these ravens. Or like a viper. Like any spellcaster will basically deal with these ravens really well. You have corruptors, right? So, or you had corruptors at least. You don't have anymore. But like one infestor, you can just catch all those ravens. Yeah, the fact that we don't have any armor upgrades makes these turrets so much better. Like if you had like, let's say +2 or +3 armor right now, they wouldn't do anything to you. But they're actually doing so much damage to your army because you don't have any upgrades. Yeah, I want to go back and look a bit because let's see. What's this before? Yeah, so like here I think you're like in basically an unlosable position right here. The thing is like he has Widow Mines everywhere, right? And we don't have a single overseer, so we're gonna lose so much to these Widow Mines. Like right now you can just get a couple of infestors, like 2 or 3 infestors, corruptors. Make sure this is so annoying, and we should, like whenever we lose drones like this, we need to remake them instantly. Yeah, and basically at this point he should never be allowed to retake these bases. Like you should keep like a Sterling or an Overlord here, make sure he doesn't get them up again. Because he has nothing that can actually secure a base. Like Ravens and Hellions can't really secure a base from him, he needs tanks or Liberators or something. So yeah, here. Like this stuff is annoying, but if you leave like 5 roaches at home that deals with this. Yeah, so this is all still fine. I think like you didn't need to do this move where you lose all your corruptors because that's very expensive. And like our drone count is quite low right now. So maybe just focus on denying these 2 bases. You don't even need to do anything else than that. Deny these bases, make sure your drone count stays good. So remake any drones you lose. Upgrades Hive. Yeah, like basically like if your army instead of standing here was standing here, this base doesn't go up, right? If you had an overseer with your army would still be huge. And you should just like stop him from expanding. End up getting the space, but it's a really expensive trade. So yeah. But yeah, even at this point, if we would just like get a couple of infestors, some corruptors. We're making a bunch of macro hatcheries right now, but now our drone count is too low to support these macro hatcheries, right? With these macro hatcheries you would want like 100 drones. Probably. Alright, Diamond 3, 3.8k MMR, I guess. Struggling versus Turtling Skytoss. Alright. We open with a 12 pull. I'm not gonna focus too much on the early game, I'll just look how you execute the 12 pull. And he steals your gases. Okay. You should not care about this at all. Because you don't even want to take the gases when you're 12 pulling, so... yeah, you should just like, ignore this completely. Just send the links across the map. Take your natural. Okay, so and also whenever you're 12 pulling, you want to start the queen right away. So the way you should do it here is... Wait, I need to look at what happened here. Okay, we drone. Yeah, this is good. But now you should start your queen right away here. Especially when you see a probe. You know that you won't be able to get the hatchery down. Like, the optimal build order with 12 pulling is to make 6 or 8 Zerglings, take your hatchery, make 2 more Zerglings, then make your queen. But if there's a probe, we can never get the hatchery down right. So you should always start your queen first. And then if there's no probe coming, you don't see a probe with this overload, you can walk 1 drone down. And if there's no probe, you can cancel your queen and get your hatchery. But you should always start your queen. Yeah, just ignore this. This is completely useless. Just make sure you get your hatchery down on time as fast as possible. Yeah, the teleport is really good with scan rushes, but yeah, just ignore this. Make sure your hatchery goes down as soon as you have the money for it. And here, like, if your hatchery was down on time, you would already be ahead. If they open Forge versus 12 pool, you're already ahead, especially if you only made 8 sterlings. So yeah, at this point you should already be really far ahead. The problem is that your hatchery is so late, right? Yeah, now we're double expanding, which is not optimal, but the way he's playing it should be fine. Like, his Cybercore is just now starting. Like, this is so late. Like, if he was playing a normal build order, his second adept or second gateway unit after Cybercore would already be done. So he's like what, 3 minutes behind his build? No, not 3 minutes, but like 2 minutes behind his build order, something like that. 1 minute and a half. You can get in here, that's just really good for you. You see everything. So yeah. To be honest, at this point, when you saw how late this cyber was, I think you could have delayed this gas a lot longer. Like, there's nothing for you to have speed for, right? There's not gonna be any adept pressure or anything like that. So yeah, just focus on minerals really heavily here. Queen count, drones. Like, you could get like 1 gas, like this could be your first gas essentially in this scenario. Maybe a little bit earlier than this, but like, you don't need to start speed already now. But yeah, you get to deny the pylon for the wolf. This is really good. It's really important that you're just spamming drones all the time behind this. Yeah, your lair is way too early here. This is hurting your economy really bad. Like, basically you're mining off 1 base right now, right? Like, you have like no saturation here. You're floating larva. Just make sure, like, 2 gas is also way too much. Like, just make sure that you're saturating your minerals as fast as possible. And then focus on teching up. You can stick on 1 gas for a long time. Yeah, you took gas too early. You're teching up a bit too fast. Like, ideally you would already be at like 66 drones right now. Like, fully saturated on all 3 bases, with this base on the way up. Or this base on the way up, whichever one you want. Or even with this base is fine too. Yeah, you should have a Sterling at least on his 3rd base. Just so you see the timing of that. But yeah, especially versus like when they're playing, you scout it to target, right? Here you have the options of going into like Hydroling Bane, or just go straight into like late game with Hive, Spire, stuff like that. Like, you can do a lot here. In general, you can defend all the air attacks with like only queens. Unless they commit really hard to them, but then you can add in some Hydras, because you have the Hydrogen, right? But in general, your goal here should just be to get up to like 100 drones as fast as possible if you're gonna play a macro game. Though I think you can probably hit like a Hydroling Bane timing of like 75 drones versus this, and probably kill him. But if you want to play the macro game, then you should look to go up to 100 drones as fast as possible. Defend with queens initially. Make sure you get your Hive really fast. Get your Spire. And try to make your spellcasters first. So like your Vipers and maybe your Infestors first, and then you add Corruptors. In a scenario like this, when there's not going to be any ground army, you can actually just skip Lurkers completely. You can skip Brood Lords. You can just go like straight into Ultra. Like 1 or 2 Ultras will clear any High Templar, right? So yeah, just in general here, you just want to get to 100 drones. Creep spread everywhere. And once you start building a bank, then you want to start making spores. And the further forward you can build your spores, the better it is for you. Like, essentially, like, and also in a scenario like this when they're turtling super hard, you should try to take their bases, some of their bases. So you like, if you're playing the long game, you're just looking to mine more of the map than he is, and then you can like pull some drones from your first 2 bases to mine these outer bases, so you actually mine them out faster. To deny those resources from him. But in general, yeah, like, our drone count is way too low, 67 drones. We should be at least 30 more drones here. Yeah, because he's just sitting on 3 base, and like, busting a 3 base Protoss is always going to be really, really hard. So like, maybe you could have a goal of like denying his 4th base with this, but you can't really commit into a turtling toss on the 3 base. Actually, this game you probably can just because there's no storm, but he really should have storm at this point. He has a robo instead for some reason. Yeah, we don't have any upgrades, which is really bad, especially versus Skytoss. I mean, if we're playing hard, I really need upgrades. But yeah, we're even gonna get the kill on the 3rd base, so this is really good. This is really good for you so far, but now we're kind of overcommitting. Like, we should be transitioning behind this, I think, already. Because the carries is already at a point where your Hydras won't be able to beat them anymore. His +1 is really late, but like once +1 finishes and like these 2 carrier finishes, you can't beat this army with just Hydra anymore. But like, you already did enough by denying his 3rd base. Like, he's almost mined out on this base is getting mined out. If you were just droning behind this, like getting infestation pit, spire, hive, you would be in an amazing position. Yeah, but in general, like, these timings, they can work, but you have to hit them super sharp and hit them very early. This was kind of too late for it to work. And you probably could have done the same thing with like 80 drones, to be honest. Yeah, now we kind of overcommitted here, we lose everything. And now we're going into late game from behind instead of from ahead, right? If you did the 100 drones thing, you would have just gotten to the same point, but you would have been ahead. Actually, I think you still might be ahead just because he doesn't have a 3rd. The problem now is that our army really sucks, and his army is getting better and better. We have no upgrades, we have no hive, we're getting a lurker then. You should never get this before hive, because lurkers are useless without the upgrades. Yeah, like, lurkers don't really have a role in this game. Like, what are they gonna kill, you know? There's no Templars, there's no ground army. And especially, like, without range, they're very useless. Because they don't even outrange a cannon, I believe, without range. So yeah, it would have been way more important just to focus on droning up, taking up the hive, starting upgrades. Especially, like, armor upgrades on the spire. Super important for Corruptor versus Carrier. The multi-prong is good though, with the lurkers. Probably committing too hard to the kill here, like, just denying this base is good enough. He's already very starved for money, so you should, instead of just like trying to commit so hard with the army, if you're just looking to deny his bases, you could split your army up into 2 groups, hit this base, just deny the bases and then go home. And if you could be doing this of like way higher drone count, right? Like, you could do these moves, where you're like, you have 1 army down here, 1 army up here. You have like 90 drones behind this. You try to deny his bases. You don't really commit to a fight. And behind this, you're just getting like Viper, Corruptor, Infestor. And you're spamming Spores as well. But here, like, as you can see, like, you didn't kill anything there, right? You lost everything. You can't fight this army with your army. Like, if you had 3-3 or like 2-2 on your Hydras, you could maybe fight this. But if there was like 1 Templar, you would not be able to fight this, so yeah, they would lost their entire army for like 1 carrier and 2 voiders. Like, basically, if you want to kill a Skytoss player, you have to hit a super sharp timing super early. Otherwise, you should be aiming to go like upgrades, hive, many drones. A lot more drones than you had this game. Yeah, but at this point, it's looking very rough, because you're behind in drones, you have a lot worse army, you have no upgrades. The only thing you have going for you is that he's been mining a lot less, overall, just because you denied the spaces a couple of times. But overall, you're super far behind here. Just because you don't have any upgrades. Yeah, and now we're making spores, we're getting lurkers. You should always get the range upgrade first, by the way. For the lurkers. Getting vipers, good, but we want corruptors as well at this point. Like hydras are kinda, like, they can do well initially, but once like the carriers start getting upgrades and high templar starts coming in, hydras really start becoming quite useless in the actual fight. But it's still good to like use to try to deny his bases. So yeah, preferably like you would have spores over here already with your lurkers, and you could like slow poke with the lurkers over here, and preferably you would have like a secondary group down here to deny these bases. Basically you're just looking to starve him out in a game like this. Like you would preferably have had these bases already, and you would just be looking to make it harder for him, making it harder for him to expand. Ideally you would want him to attack into your spores, right? So you would want to have like a lot of spores over here. You're sieging this base, you're denying this base with a second group, and like the goal for you is to get him to attack into your spores, right? And the entire time you should be looking with the vipers for abducts and stuff like that. But to be honest, versus this army, if you just had like 30 corruptors and 3 vipers, you would just straight up win your fights if you had decent upgrades. Because he has no templar or anything yet. Like, he can't do anything. But the hydras are quite useless at this point. And yeah, again, our drone count is still way too low for what we want to be. We want to be mining out the map a lot faster. We want to be expanding a lot faster. Like, basically you should control like the entire map right now in this scenario. And he should have a really hard time expanding. Like, he should not get to expand these bases for free. Yeah. The thing is just like the power bombs don't really do much just because there's shield batteries, right? They just heal up everything the power bombs do. Abduct is really good, but the thing is you kinda need corruptors. Like when there's no Templar Abduct here, he can't storm your corruptors, he can't feed back your vipers. So like Viper Corruptor is insanely strong like, right now when there's no high Templars. So you should have like a group of Viper Corruptor. Run around and try to snipe off units like this. If you had Corruptors, he could never do a move like this, because you can just run here and kill it. Yeah, now we're down to 40 drones, so we don't have that big of a bank. Like, if we had been on 100 drones this entire time, you could have had, like, more spores than you have. You could have had an insanely big bank. You could have had, like, 10k right now. You could have mined out a lot of these bases. You could have started to mine out these bases. And that puts a lot of pressure on him. Because like if you mined both of these bases, he has to trade a lot better than you to win the game. Now we're on 20 drones with no bank. We're not even maxed. So we're still making hydras, which is not what you want in this scenario. Like luckily for you, he's not making any high templars. Or he's now. Okay. Yeah, so now it's looking really rough. Now we can basically never fight this army. Yeah, like the storms are just gonna own us, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, even if you got like a really good fight here, where like you got the perfect engagement, you would still probably lose the fight, just because like his army is just 10 times better than yours at this point. Yeah. So yeah, like if you wanna go for like the timing based thing, you need to really hit a sharp timing really early where you want to go for the kill. Otherwise you should play like the 100 drones game. You can try to make some units just to deny his bases, but in general like you don't really want to make any units before you have like 100 drones. And you can use your queens to defend all like the early aggression from the void rays and carriers and stuff like that. Make sure you tech up, get your upgrades. Expand as much of the map as possible and try to mine out the bases closest to him first. Putting out gas at a good time. Clean early game so far. Now Overlord in one drone, preferably. Yeah, it's fine to do this. You can also do the... I personally like to do the Overlord before third hatch. There's a small chance that the Reaper could block you then, if they go straight here. But if they go here, they're not harassing you. You can just take a gas. Like in general, just go here and hide the drone. And then I go here. Because like now what's gonna happen is you get supply blocked slightly, right? Like it's not the end of the world. You make your Overlord right now. Yeah. And we're supply blocked for like a little bit. Like right now we're supply blocked right for like 10 seconds. Which can be avoided by making the Overlord before the third. But this is also fine. Like a lot of pro gamers do this too. So both is viable. Save the drone, nice. Tumor first. Yeah, so just during this entire exchange, it's so important that you spend these larvae. You need to be constantly spamming SD while you're microing. Like in between like your mouse movements as you're microing versus the Reaper, you need to be spamming your drones out. Start a third queen. Yeah, using speed. Yeah, looks pretty good so far. Fourth queen. Looks good. Yep, going up to 6 queens, which is good. You wanna make sure that you get a Link Scout out on the map. Because basically, like, if you was going for, let's say, a Hellbat push, you would want a Zergling right here at like 405 to spot for the Medivac move out at 405. You would also want to poke up into the natural here to see, is it going like 2-on-1? Is there like a bunch of Marines here? Is there a supply depot here? Is there Hellions here? This supply depot should tell you that it's not going 3cc, it's doing some sort of a two command center opener. If there's no supply depot here by like 3:45, like at the very latest they should start at 3:30. These supplies. So if there's no supply depot here by 3:30, you can. It's usually pretty safe to assume that it's a 3cc build. But yeah, if you came here and you saw this, you would know that there's not a 3cc build. So that means you need to play a little bit more safe. Harold Andrastes, thank you so much for the 2 months resub. So yeah, here you would want to get a betting nest at this point at like around 4 minutes when we know it's not 3cc. We would also want to get 7 queens, so like 1 more queen pretty fast here. Yeah, we sacked the Overlord, we see the cloak, which is good. So now we can get our lair. Yeah, 1 more gas is fine because you're going up the lair. Or you're not going up there. If you're not getting a lair here super fast, you can actually delay this gas a little bit. Because the main reason we would want the extra gas is if we're going lair. We want extra gas for baiting speed, we want extra gas for overseers, right? But if we're going for like a late lair spore defense, you might as well delay this gas a little bit. We are getting a lair now though, so it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't make too many Zerglings, which is good. We have going up to 8 queens. I would like this is probably fine. It's a little bit over safe. I would prioritize getting my 4th hatch and 2 more evos before getting this queen. Unless I knew, like I would only make this queen if I knew like that like a Hellbat attack is coming, or he's going into BC, or he's playing 2 base, like he's not getting a 30cc at all. Then I would get this queen before 4th hatch. Otherwise I would just save this money for faster 4th hatch and double evo. Yeah, we're droning, this is good. So we want to get like an overseer right away with our queens here, because we know there's banshees out. Might end up getting this cancelled. Yeah, oh, that hurts. Yeah, so in general, like when you're playing versus Banshee, you should kind of expect them to poke at your 4th hatch. Especially like if they're not showing up anywhere else. If they were like hitting here or like hitting down here, then you would know, right? But if you don't see the Banshees, you should kind of expect them to come here. Especially since like you already have a lot of creep tumors over here. As soon as you put these down, you should try to walk over here with your queens. Can you slide a very quick CVT in? Yes, absolutely. Just post it in the Discord server. There's a channel for sub replay analysis that you can use. We're doing sub replay analysis until 5 PM basically, for as long as we have replays to go through. What is sub battle? In 4 hours. So 4 hours from now. Alright, let's go back a bit and look what happened here. Alright, we're getting 1-1 started. A little bit late probably, but it's fine since we have the early bailing speed. That's up to you, Dodilol. If you have more replays, like how, yeah. If you only have a couple replays, you might want to save them for tomorrow. You pick. If you have a bunch of them, you can send one now. Alright, so in this scenario where we're going for fast bailing speed late 1-1, we need to make sure we have bailings for the first push. Like we have a decent amount of bailings, because that's how we're going to defend, right? If we were going for 1-1 before bailing speed, then we could play slightly lower on the bailing count. Stick on more links. At this point you're doing a pretty good job, like you have link spotters, which is really nice. You're gonna see the move out. Drone count probably should be a bit higher, but that's partly because you got your 4th denied. Like if you didn't get your 4th denied, you would preferably be on like 75 drones right now. So you would have like 11 drones or something on 9 drones on minerals here at least, before dealing with the first push. Let's see what you see on the move out. Do you see it? Yeah, a little bit unfortunate where you didn't have perfect vision here. So you see the Hellions. Okay, so when you see that he's bringing his entire army like this, like the Banshees aren't here, but Banshees don't really kill links very fast. But like whenever you see that he brings everything, like he brings the Hellions and the tanks, that means that he's very vulnerable for counterattack right now. So if you had like a Ling run by set up already, basically you would want like these links to be out on the map somewhere, and then you can look at his army when he pushes, and if you see that he's bringing both the tanks and the Hellions with the first push, then you can do a counterattack with the Zerglings. If he's pushing you and you see that there's no Hellions, or like if the Hellions are still alive but they're not with this push, you can expect them to be home, and then you just use this counterattack to flank. Or if you see that there's only Marines and Hellions, there's no tanks, then same thing, you use the links to flank, you don't counterattack. But when you see that they're bringing everything like this, that means that they have nothing at home, right? Like he has 2 Banshees and 4 Marines at home right now, so he would just get wrecked by a counterattack to the 3rd base. Or if he's not quick enough, you could get in here, get on top of the Marines. But yeah, in general, like when you want to look at his army and then decide, so you want to have like the link set up already, or link flank already set up, and then you can choose if you want to use it to flank or use it to counterattack. Yeah, so we're kind of overmaking units right here. Too many Banelings, too many Zerglings. we would preferably have some saturation on our 4th hatch instead here. Like on creep, this is not really a scary push, right? Like there's no combat shield. There's only 2 tanks, and like we're completely on creep here. So you can like basically defend this with half your army. Like you could defend this with like this amount of units easily. And the rest could have been drones or a counterattack. This is decent, but in general we don't want to do these like small baneling like skirmishers when there's tanks. This is how we want to play versus Widow Mines. So if you was pushing with Widow Mines, you would want to do this, where you send in some banelings to detonate the Widow Mines and blow up clumped marines and stuff like that. But versus tanks, we always just want to go for big fights. Big fights with a flank. And we let the queens lead the charge to tank the tank shots. Yeah. Yeah, the problem is like this entire time we're even in economy, or like we're even a bit behind because of mules, right? So even we took 0 damage here, just because we don't have any drones in our 4th, we end up behind. And like our 2-2 isn't started yet, his 2-2 started, he's getting his 4th CC right now. So yeah, like the biggest problem here is just that this drone count has been way too low for way too long. And now we're even gonna take damage from these banshees, and now we're just very, very far behind. We have decent creep spread, so that's going for us. But our 5th base is quite late. We don't have any drones here. We get to clean up the banshees, which is nice. Yeah, so now is the point where you would want to start to do these, where you're running like some links and some banes, right? To clean up the Widow Mines and stuff like that. Unless you want to go for big fights. Here, preferably, if you can, you want to wait for 2-2. Our upgrades were a little bit late keeps this game, so they probably would have been finished here if you were on top of them. But in general, you always want to make sure that your upgrades are finished, especially if you see that he has 2-2. Like, you'd never want to fight down an upgrade, you want to make sure you're always at least even. But you're fighting on creep at least, so that's good for you. You would want your queens to be here. Where are they? They're over here. You would want your queens to be here, and they should go in first. Because that's gonna do 2 things. It's gonna tank the tank shots that's in the back. It's gonna force him to bring more of his marines forward, because he can't just fight like 5 or 6 queens with transfuse with just a handful of marines. He needs to bring more marines to actually fight the queens, right? So fight starts off pretty good for us, but then we get baited into the minefield. So yeah. So yeah, here we didn't have an overseer with our army, so that really hurts. So like now we're taking bad fights as well, and this is after being down in the economy for a really long time. Like only now are we getting to a point where we're somewhat happy, but preferably at this point we would already be mining from a 5th base as well, with like 85 to 90 drones. Yeah, we still don't have an overseer, which is huge, because that means that his Widow Mines are probably gonna go more than 1 shot. But yeah, we still clean this up, we're still in a playable position, but it's really important that we get some mining going over here. We get overseers out. But yeah, now we have lurkers. Once we have lurkers, we can start doing bigger split ups of our army. And you should, again, always get this one first. Always get this one first. In every situation. Except like maybe in some weird CVC scenarios when you're playing versus Lingmei Mura. But I would still almost always get this one first. But in general, at this point, once we have lurkers, he can't really fight into this. So we're free to split off more units. So at this point you would want to have one army over here, one army over here. and try to deny this space from him while defending this space with lurkers, right? Yeah, he goes for drop. This is also, you would almost always want to get a Viper once you get to Hive. And just because it's nice to have if they're going tank staff or blinding clouds, it's nice for abducts and liberators, but it's also very nice to parabomb medevacs when they go for moves like this. Like one parabomb on these medevacs will shut down this drop essentially, because the medics will all be so low like that, like a single spore and a queen can do a lot of damage to them. You can get 2 lurkers, but in general I don't think it's needed. Like, this is the important upgrade, and this is like the burrow speed is like the luxury upgrade basically. And yeah, something you should always do is, like, once the banshees are dead, you should move up these spores to here, because they're not filling any purpose being in the middle line anymore. Just having them here to shut down drops is way more useful. Yeah, so at this point you just want to deny his 5th base. Like, even after everything, this game is actually looking pretty good for us overall. So yeah, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you get this base up, which you can do with these lurkers. And then you can have like huge amounts of Ling Bane on this side to make sure it's really hard for him to take the space. And at this point you can even start considering being aggressive with the lurkers. Make sure you spread your creep. And yeah, doing aggressive moves like this with lurkers is really good, because once you get them into a position, you kind of own that position, right? Yeah, so this is really good for you. So yeah, I'll just make sure, yeah, in the meantime you keep this army down here. This is really good. Make sure he doesn't get this base up. And you lost some drones here, I guess, to a Widowmine drop here. Just make sure that you stay on like 80 drones at least. Make sure you keep expanding. And like I said before, like 1 or 2 Vipers is really nice in scenarios like this, for just blinding clouds or abducting the tanks. But to be honest, at this point you're already happy with denying this space. You're on 5 base versus 3 right now, so it's a good situation for you. But the whole strength of the lurkers is that it allows you to split up your army way more effectively, because they are very effective at defending and holding positions, so they have to bring a lot of units if they want to bust a lurker line, right? And that means that if they're bringing a lot of units to bust a lurker line, they're gonna have less units elsewhere on the map. Yeah, again, Vipers here would be really good. Yeah, you already have them. Nice. This is okay, but in general, like, being too aggressive with your lurkers, you should be careful with. At this point, you're so far ahead, it doesn't really matter. You want to keep your lurkers alive. You just want to secure positions with them. You don't need to, like, do run-bys with solo lurkers. You want to make sure, like, if you're doing a move like this, you want to have a big army with your lurkers. You can actually protect them, right? Just holding this position with the lurkers is good enough. Ah, they were in hold position. That's rough. Yeah, so here we kind of ended up throwing away a lot of units. We kind of struggling to remax because our drone count isn't what it should be. So we want to be a bit careful here. Like, you should be pretty happy just denying these 2 bases from him. Like, he can't win if he can't get these bases up, so you don't need to actually commit to doing anything else. And this Viper count is way too high. Probably never want like more than 3 or 4 at most. I would say 2, 3 is like a good number. But yeah, again, like, there's no pressure on you to do anything here. Just denying these spaces is already really good. The one problem that we have is our drone count, and that this space is really late. Yeah, because essentially if we were doing all of this, what we've been doing right now, like denying these spaces, but we were actually on 80 drones, you would be making like a massive bank right now. And like, if you kept the lurkers alive that died here, and just kept them here, it would have been really hard for him to retake the space. He can never take this space. I'm sure he has like a tank, really high tank count, but at this point you're going to be able to trade so much more cost effectively. Yeah. Yeah, you have a lot of drones here. Little drones here. Now we have a more decent drone count, but we kind of gave him... Like, we had some bad trades, right? We traded pretty poorly, so now he has been able to take this space. And now we're sitting defensive when we want to be a bit more aggressive than we are. It's a cute move. Yeah, we just want to keep, like, from the position we were in. Like, if we had this drone count earlier, our bank would have been huge. We would just want to keep poking and, like, check where his army is and isn't. Like, once we have a huge bank, we can just force bad trades. Like, if you run in with everything, but you get the space, you get a decent trade for his army. That trade is really good for you, because he can't actually remake his units once he starts going broke. And you can. But yeah, at this point, doing a Broodlord switch isn't terrible. You just gotta make sure you get enough Broodlords to actually fight his ghost count. In this case, his ghost count is quite low, so you don't need that many Broodlords. Yeah, you have too many Vipers too. That's a lot of supply that you're soaking up. So like 3 or 4 Vipers at most. You would want a lot more Ling Bane in general. But yeah, the Broodlords are really good here, because he doesn't have enough ghosts. Make sure your Overseers are covering your Broodlords at all times. Yeah, he tries to nuke, but he's already dead at this point. There's no gas left. Yeah. Yeah, at this point it looks pretty over. Okay, we're going for the overload for before the third base. I like that. Maybe we mined a little bit too much gas. Preferably we would pull out a little bit earlier out of this gas if we want to get our third hatch first. In this case it worked out because he's actually blocking our third, so now we can start ling speed. But in general, we want to make sure we pull out a little bit earlier. Because if we started our third hatch, we wouldn't be able to start this speed for quite a while anyways. Sorry for no worries. It's cool. It's cool. Alright. We want to make sure that when we get our third hatch blocked like this, that we start walking this queen immediately towards the third base. So we want to protect this tumor, obviously. So we should like put the tumor somewhere like up here at this point. And then walk the queen downwards, chase away the Reaper, and now just walk to the third base with the queen. But he's not actually checking the... yeah. Because if the Reaper was like over here, he could stop this drone from going here, right? So you would want the queen to come down to the third base to help protect this this drone. 3cc. More queens. This is good. Yeah, at this point we should be setting it back into gas. This is also good. What do we scout? We see that very late second gas. You should also be scouting the front here. Let's see when you scouted the front the last time. Yeah, we want to scout here at like right now at like 340, 345, something like that. But here you see everything with this order anyway, so now you know it's a 3cc build. So you don't really need to check here, but in general we want to check the front just to make sure if we don't get this scout. But this scout was good enough, so it's all good. You see 3cc, you see late second gas. Here we see late Banshee. So let's go back and look at what you did in the meantime. Yeah, you would want to start one more queen here. So you go up to 6 queens total. Yeah, and just drone really hard to this third base. This is good. Start lair, Roachhorn. That's interesting. Spores are a little bit early here. Versus 3cc, you can start... Actually, They're only a little bit early. They're fine. You could delay them like 5 seconds, a bit, something like that. Versus 3cc, you can start your spores at like 4:45. Yeah, Roachborn is fine. I would probably go Bailing Nest here instead, personally. But if you want to play Roach, then going for Roachborn here is completely viable. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, I want to make sure we get an Overseer. That's good. We would also want to get our 4th hatch down now, as fast as possible. So like what we're missing right now is... well, first of all, we're playing versus 3cc build. And versus any 3cc build, you want to make sure you get your 4th hatch a lot earlier. So, let's see what happened here. In general, I think going up to 3 gas, maybe a little bit much. Maybe 2 gas would be fine here, initially. Yeah, just make sure we smell our drones. It's good. We could delay the next, like 7 queens is fine. But I would probably stay on 6 queens for a while, versus 3cc. Just to make sure I get this hatchery down faster, and then make a 7th queen. And also double Evo at this point. Around 5 minutes would be a good timing for that. Yeah, you can delay queen number 7 and 8 versus 3cc, yeah. Yeah, we preferably have more drones here as well. Yeah, we want to be on like 66 drones here already. Yeah. Yeah, we take no damage. The problem here is that we're taking no damage, but we are... Yeah, but even if you see the push, you need to drone still, because now what happens is that you defend, but you end up behind afterwards. So right now, even though you didn't take any damage, you're behind because your drone count is a bit too low, and you have no 4th hatch, you have no evos. So yeah, you can make like, to be honest, versus this, you don't even need roaches. If you're very scared of like hellbats, you could make like 4, 5, 6 roaches, something like that. But yeah, 7 is already too many, and you're making 6 more. Yeah. So yeah, just make sure that like, it's very important in general that you barely defend. That you barely have enough units to defend, that you're getting out as much drones as possible behind this. And yeah, in general, you would want to have... Like again, I think this, you made 1 queen too many because you saw the 3rd CC. Fast 3rd CC. So in general, you could just get a 4th hatch right now, and then when the push comes, you can pull all your queens to defend, right? If you pull your inject queens to the front with your creep sweat queens, you have more than enough to fight. Yeah, it's fine to get a couple roaches, I think. But just make sure you don't make too many. Like versus this, when you see this, like 4 or 5 roaches will defend this perfectly fine. You don't need more than that. And you could have actually just used the Zerglings for a run by during this time, since you're making roaches. But I get you can be scared of like a Hellion run by, so keeping them at home is fine too. The biggest thing here is just that there's no... You need 4th hatch, double Evo, and go back into droning. Yeah, we're playing a bit too scared right here. Right, let's see what happens from here. Okay, we drone again, but still, like, yeah, we need more drones. Yeah, here they come. We get our 4th hatch. So yeah, like now we're at a decent spot, but we would have wanted to be here earlier. Like basically, if you made less roaches and like 1 or 2 less queens, you could have had everything that you have now, like 4th hatch, double Evo, Bailing Nest, 67 drones. You could have had this like a minute and a half ago, basically, and still defended the push quite easily. So we just played a bit too safe this game. And right now what we would want is, we would want to have some Zerglings spread out just to spot when he moves out. The Overseer is good. We scouted everything. So we can just put it here or somewhere just to check for move outs. Use Changelings to scout for move outs. And yeah, you're going up 85 drones, that's really good. Yeah, so now I think you're in a good spot overall. A little bit annoying with the Banshees. It's not the end of the world. Not having a Spore here is a little bit annoying. And we want to make sure we make the drones we lost. We're doing that already. Nice. Yeah, we just want something to check for this move out, right? Because let's say you had a Zergling over here to spot for this, then you could morph Banelings already right now. Getting a 5th hatch, that's also good. Yeah, so here we didn't have any vision, so we didn't see the push coming, so now we're kind of out of position with our army. We're also losing our roaches, which is not really good right now. It's too early to get rid of our roaches. You don't want to throw away your roaches until you're like at least maxed with a bank. You can use them and just make Ravagers. Ravagers are pretty good in this scenario. Yeah. Yeah, so in general, roaches are better to keep defensive initially, and then you can do counterattacks with Ling Bane instead. That's a better way to do it right here. Once you get to maxed out, then you want to get rid of your roaches. But right now, before you're maxed out, you want to keep your roaches with your army, because they're pretty good at defending. And like if you had a couple of Ravagers, you could have used Corrosive Bile on this tank and stuff like that. But you got a pretty good fight anyways. Yeah, it's a really good fight for you. Kill the Banshee. And whenever you get to Hive, you should always get like at least 1 Viper. If you have the gas for it, get 2, but in general just at least 1 Viper. Right here. And yeah, now we just want to keep creep spreading, spend our money. We could probably get like 5 to 10 more drones here. That would be fine. But yeah, we don't want to be too aggressive here because these sort of moves, like these run-bys, can be good if he's pushing you. Let's say his army is down here and he's pushing here. Then doing a run-by like this can be good. But when he's just sitting at home and camping, there's no real need for you to do this, because you should expect his units to be home. So when there's nothing going on like this, instead of focusing on doing this run-by, you just focus on getting your drone cut up, getting your creep spread going, sending out some spotters to check for move outs, spreading some more overlords down here, up here. But yeah, it was only a little bit, so it's fine. You're getting Vipers, so it's good. Yeah, in general, your drone count could be a little bit higher, like 5 to 10 more drones would be good. Yeah, and again, just having like a couple of Zerglings or something out on the map to spot for these move outs is very useful. And I mentioned this in the last game as well, that after the Banshees have died, you can move these spores up to the edge of your base. Like this. You can move this spore up here if there's a Liberator or anything. And that's very useful to defend drops like this. You see it right away, but you're kind of out of position, right? Your army is kind of far away. We have vision here, which is good, but yeah. So here he ends up getting a pretty good fight, right? He gets to kill all the Zerglings before the Banelings come, and then he picks up, goes down here. Yeah, 5 spores is a bit too much, I think, but yeah, having a couple of spores like this is pretty good. This should be a pretty good fight for you. Yeah, so again, we need to make sure we have vision out on the map, because what happened here is that you were out of position for this, so you had to over respond to this by sending everything here to clean this up. And that means that we're going to be out of position for his next push on the right side. So yeah. Overall, it looks pretty good. Just that you're a bit out of position right now, right? And we missed some injects. So we're kind of missing larva. We can't really spend our money. Our drone count is looking really good though. Creep spread is looking okay. Could be a bit better. But the biggest thing is just not having vision for when he moves out. Because if you have vision for this when he moves out here, you're in position. I think you can defend pretty easily. But looks like you still do fine, so... We get the lurker upgrades. Yes, we only get this too. Yeah, we're getting pretty good fights here. The game looks really good for us right now. And again, we don't really want to be attacking right now. We want to make sure that we're spending our money first. And then attack. Make sure we don't let him expand like this for free. We should always make it hard for him to expand, so you want like a Zerling or an Overlord down here, and then do like a Ling. You can send like 15 Zerlings down here to deny this from him. The important thing here is just that you spend your money, get some Lingbane out, get your Vipers in position. We don't want to be just like running in a little bit of units at a time. We want to make sure if we're gonna push, we come with everything at once. And we should also use this time. So like now after we defended the push, we brought some time for ourselves, right? So now we want to make sure we use this time to respread our creep. And maybe take down some rocks. Because this isn't really going to accomplish too much with only the handful of units that we have. Yeah, so we end up giving away some units. We lose our queens. Like we could have used this time to just creep spread everything, spend our money, deny this space. And that would have been way better. And yeah, the Vipers. The Vipers are going home. Yeah, very important that you use the Vipers in the fight. Overall, it's still looking good for you. You just need to make sure that you can actually spend all your money and get like a big army out. We want to make sure we fix this stuff. Because right now we have 17 drones here, 17 drones here. Want to make sure you pull away half like this and put them on a new base, preferably this base. You want to start working on this side as well, getting this base up. Dining Cloud here would be really good. Yeah, so like we have 93 drones here, but we have a lot of drones that are not mining efficiently, right? Like we're actually not mining with these drones. They're actually not doing anything. So we essentially have 16 less drones that it says here. And yeah, like running in a couple units here made it so we lost this base later if we just used the time before here. Let's see, where was it? Yeah, if we just use this time right now to just creep spread, spend our money, saturate this base, creep spread, deny this base, send some Zerlings down here, then you're in a really good spot. Then you basically won the game. But yeah, here we end up losing some units for free. And because we lose these units and we weren't able to spend our money in time, he gets to push here, we lose all our queens, and now he gets to kill this base. So yeah, and we have some units here. They're not really doing anything right now. Could have been used in the fight. Yeah. Yeah, like moves like this are really good. But you want to make sure that you keep your economy intact. Like you can only really do this stuff when you have a bank, right? And now you're not really maxed. But it's still a really good move. You just want to make sure that you build a bank, you're maxed out, and then you do moves like this. Ducts are really nice. Fighting lurkers is really good for you. But yeah, we want to make sure that if we ever lose our position, like immediately when you lose your position here, you should be just pulling these drones away and go here. So you should have taken this base a lot earlier, focused on creep spread on this side. Because right now we would want this base to be up and running. But yeah, we got a really good fight here. Problem is we have nowhere to send our drones right now. Yeah, really good fight again. Yeah, and again we're doing the same thing here, where we win a fight. Like you win this fight, and it looks really good for you. And like right now you got your time again, you should be focusing on spreading creep, getting your bases up, spending your money so you get maxed out, try to max out. And then you want to fight again. But instead we take the units that we have. So this is a mistake. Like we lose small groups of units all the time, right? Because we're fighting before we have these units. You want to make sure you have everything together before you go for these fights. Yeah. So essentially, like you're gonna win here because you took you had all the really good fights. But you want to make sure that you're focusing more on creep spreading, getting your bases up, making sure he doesn't get to take these bases for free. Just like having an overlord here or a Zergling here can allow you to deny this stuff a lot easier. Yeah, and again, you want to make sure that you never run in with just your lurkers. If you have only lurkers, you should go back and just hold the position, like right here, and wait for your reinforcements, right? You want some lings, some hydras, some banings, something to tank, so you have something in front, something to buffer for the lurkers. Because lurkers on their own can't really push forward like this. Well, you're gonna lose a lot here, right? Because you try to run in with the lurkers alone, you don't burrow. Yeah, you want to make sure that you wait for this, all these units, and you go together with everything at once. Yeah. That's good stuff. But we're pretty all in right now. Like we're not really mining much anymore. But yeah, I think you're so far ahead right now. You're gonna win anyways. But yeah. Yeah, GG. Yeah, you're going overload speed, so everything looks fine. I would say that if you're not going overload speed, you don't really want 2 overlords on the other side of the map, just because if he opens Viking, you're gonna lose 2 overlords. But since you're going overload speed, it's fine, because you can always save at least 1 overlord. Alright, we're going up to 6 queen, that's good. Yeah, we want to make sure we scout right away here. Like, we want to have some sort of scout before 4 minutes. Because that's when we need to start a Bailing Nest, versus, like, for example, the Marauder all in, like the Marauder Hellbat all in, Banshee Hellbat all in, stuff like that. You need to have some sort of scouting going on before 4 minutes. Just to know if you're playing versus 2 base or 3 CC. So especially when you play overload speed, it's very important that you get the scout off right away when you get the overload speed. But here you come in, you're gonna see that it's 3 CC. It's all good. So we got supply backed a bit here, but that's fine. That happens. Drone super hard. Make sure we don't lose our overlords. Yeah. This is all good. And again, like I talked about in the other games, like when you see it's 3 CC, you should not make this queen. You can stay on 6 queen for quite a while. Bailing Nest, the timing is fine. But here you should prioritize getting your either lair started or double evo and 4th base as fast as possible while spending all your larvae into drones. This should all be drones. Keep ejecting drones. So yeah, like if they're going 3cc, this supply depot international, the first supply depot international will start at around 4 minutes. His is a little bit late, but yeah, he's actually very late. I guess he's been missing some production cycles. Yeah, this one should start around 4 minutes usually. But yeah, if there's like a 320 to 330 first supply depot, then it's two base. It can also be like a 315. Like it really depends because there's a lot of different openings for turn, right? Like they can go gas first, they can go barracks first, they can go reactor first. And all this stuff kind of changes their supply depot timing a little bit. So you just in general gotta go like, if they made a supply depot before 330, it's a 2-base build. And if they didn't, there's no supply depot here before 4 minutes, then it's 3cc. But like the supply depot changes a little bit, the timing, based on if it's like gas first, reactor first, reaper first, marine first, all that stuff. Because they need to get supply for their Hellions, right? That's what soaks the most supply for Terran in the early game. So depending on the timing of their Hellions is how they want to make their supply depot, right? But yeah, we're getting double evo. But again, like our 4th hatch should have really been going down a lot earlier here. We're making 24 Zerglings, which I'm not quite sure why. These Zerglings are pretty useless at this point. So, like we saw it was 3cc. So we already, like, we played overload speed. We made more queens than we needed, and we're making a lot of Zerglings. We made a spine. We're playing super safe, which is not what we want, right? We saw the 3rd cc. So yeah, it could be like a 2-on-1 after 3cc, where they go like a stim timing medevac drop with Hellbats. But as long as you have a Bailing Nest ready for that, like if you start your Bailing Nest at 4:30, which you did, you started at like 4:35, you're gonna have Bailings in time for that. And like Bailing plus Queen will defend that pretty fine. So you don't need to worry anything else about a Hellbat push because you have this Bailing Nest. Like if he went for that kind of Hellbat timing, it would hit at like 5:50, maybe something like that. So you have plenty of time. 5:45 maybe, something like that. So the biggest thing so far is just that your drone count is way too low. You should be like almost, like at least 65 drones right now, and this base should have been up like a long time ago. It should be almost done by now. So now you should be making like another round of drones to your 4th hatch, going up to like 75 drones. And yeah, at this point, if you're floating money, you can just get a macro hatch. That's fine. Making extra queens is fine too. That's always useful in the early game to defend pushes and stuff like that. So if you ever find yourself floating money like this, just make hatcheries and queens. Make sure you're spending your larva. Yeah, and you have vision for the move out, and you already have more than enough units to defend any move out. So like you don't really need to worry too much about this. If there was tanks coming with this, you would maybe want to get a little bit more Zerglings and more for a few more Banelings. But as it is, your army should be more than enough to defend this. Your biggest problem here is that you're floating so much money and that your drone count is not what it should be. So spending your money, more drones, macro hatch. Yeah, you don't need to be scared here. Like here, you want to be out here protecting your creep, essentially. The only reason you would have to be scared in this scenario is if there was tanks. Like if you have tanks on the high ground, then you don't really want to take the fight. But versus just 2 medevacs and some Hellions, your army can be out here and protect your creep. Yeah, and ideally it would be like fully saturated on this base by now. Like after you've chased away the first 2 medevacs, like once you have enough units to defend the first 2 medevacs, you should go back into droning up to like 85, something like that. Getting your 5th hatch. Yeah, we see this move out. We could consider doing a link counterattack here if we wanted to. We saw that he was starting a 4th CC, so you would maybe want to put Overlord or a Zergling over here to make sure he doesn't get to take that for free. But in general, we just want to creep spread here. We want to drone. We want to defend our creep. Fight on creep. But yeah, like you could totally do like a Ling Ranwai here. And in general, like something you want to do in CVT is whenever you get up to like 140 supply, basically like when you have enough units to fight medevacs in different places. So at this point, like you have enough units, so you should take like about half your units and put them on this side of the map and half down here. And that's just because you want to protect your creep spread, you want to protect your bases. So the cue for that is just like if you have enough units to fight 2 medevacs at 2 different places, that's how you want to split your army, right? So half your army here, half your army here, protect your creep spread. And you can also use these armies to do round buys and stuff like that later on. So yeah, we don't want to be doing this where we're like chasing 2 medevacs with our entire army. We want to be in position always on both sides of the map at this point. And if he were to do like a big ass push where he brings everything here and he's sieging you with tanks, then you can choose if you want to use this army to counterattack or come from here, from this angle with a flank. Ideally you keep them half and half, more or less. Like so, like 50% here, 50% here. And you just keep adding to both sides. And then yeah, like I said, when he pushes you, you decide if you want to either counterattack or flank. Going into lurker is good. Yeah, like our drone count is fine, but this base should have preferably been up already in mining. Again, yeah, this is fine. You have decent map vision, your creep spread is decent. Your creep spread would have been way better if you just protected it early on from the first 2 medevacs. Like you got to clear a lot of creep for free with the first 2 medevacs where you could have protected it. But in general, yeah, we just want to defend here until we have lurkers. We can do counterattacks if he brings everything. Want to make sure we keep units up here to defend this base. But yeah, we want to make sure we respread our creep as fast as we can. Ooh, nice. Yeah, and also Vipers, as soon as we get to Hive, Vipers, get the upgrades going. And yeah, again, it's so important that you have an army up here as well. Because you can't just let him walk over here and kill this base for free. And now if you run up your entire army here to defend this, then you leave this base open too, so it's really important that you have your army pre-split onto both sides of the map with 50-50. The only time when you don't need to have like 2 armies pre-split up like this is if you're playing Lingbei and Muta. Because if they're doing moves like this versus Lingbei and Muta, you can just bring everything and kill the medevacs, right? And you're gonna kill everything. But what happens here, when there's no Mutas, they're just gonna pick up and run away, right? So that's when you need to have your army in multiple places. Because versus Muta, they can't multi-prong like this, because Sigurd is gonna lose everything on one side, right? But yeah, if you're not playing Muta, you need to have your army spread up. Half here, half here. It's okay to send in wins. That's fine, you send in whatever you want. Yeah, like a Viper or 2 is really useful in these scenarios. You could parabomb, you could abduct medevacs. But still, yeah, the biggest problem here is that we're just running around with our entire army. Like a clump. Like the entire army goes here, the entire army goes here. We need to have split up armies here. It's the only reason we're losing this game. Yeah, again, everything went here, we lose this base. So it's like this is like the third time, I think, where we lose this base because our entire army is over here. So that's the biggest thing so far. But we got a really good fight. So like, and we did a good counterattack at the same time. So we're winning the game now. But yeah, in general, we could have done the same things. Like this round break could have still happened, and you could have saved this base, and you could have defended this drop. It's just really important that you have your units split up, and you only bring them together if he brings everything to the same side. But yeah, now we're gonna have 3-3. No 3-3. He's on 4 base. We're on 4 base too, but we have traded pretty good this game actually, so it's actually fine. And we're gonna have a pretty insane upgrade advantage right now. Don't you need Viper if you just... Well, it's always nice to have like one Viper for drops. Like when they go for like 3-4 medevac drops. A Parabomb or Abduct can be really good for that situation. But you don't need Vipers for the actual fights. There's this biomine. But it's still nice to have like 1 or 2. Yeah, moves like that are fine. But still like right now, if 2 medevacs were to show up on the bottom, then we lose this base, we lose all this creep spread. So still we want to make sure we have some units here, some units here. But overall it's looking pretty good. You should be able to just crush him with this fight because you're so far ahead. We do a decent job splitting versus the middle ones. Yeah, at this point you could just go kill him, to be honest. The 3-3 is so huge for you. But yeah, playing it slow is fine too. Yeah, run by is good. It doesn't look like you're using F2 too much, at least, because you're doing these run-bys and stuff like that, so I don't think you're using F2 too much. I think the biggest problem is that you're not splitting up your army preemptively. Yeah. So if you just start splitting your army into 2 groups, 50-50 on each side of the map, protect your creep spread, protect your bases, you should get a lot of easy wins in games like that. Yeah, so it's 2-base Muta. Even if you're playing 2-base Muta, you want to make sure you get your 3rd hatch here down here before you add these gases. So you would want to like send a drone out to your 3rd base right now, especially since it looks like you're gonna kill this Reaper. Yeah, so just take your 3rd base right away, and then keep droning. So yeah, taking your 3rd base now, that's good. It's a little bit late, but it's not the end of the world. Bailing nest, yeah, it's good. So yeah, here you just spend your drones, get your gases running, get an extra queen here. You see that it's not 3cc, so you might want to get even like another queen once the slash finishes. So yeah, here when your lair finishes, you should start your spire and then make an overseer on this side of the map, just to scout to see what's happening, if it's Banshee, if it's BC, if it's Hellbat 2-1, or like yeah, whatever it could be, right? Liberator. You can also get an overseer at home. So it's Hellbat. So yeah, in this scenario what you need to do is you need to scout with Sterlings in the early game here. So when they're going for this build, this medevac can't like sneak around the map like this, because they're like on a timer, right? They have to hit before you get banings. So you just need to have a Zergling in between their starport and the front of your base, essentially. They don't have time to like sneak around with the medevac, because they're on a very sharp timer here. So he's just gonna pick up the Marines. It's like usually like if they hit a sharp timing, this medevac will leave the base at 4:05. So if you have like a Zergling here at 4:05, you will see this medevac coming. And then you can, at this point, when you're playing 2 base Muda versus this build, like now he's hitting so late, you could probably just defend your third, to be honest, because his timing is not very fast. But you should have 1 extra queen here already. Like, you should start a queen here as soon as you have the money. But in general, like, the general response versus this is to just wall off here. So you would preferably have your building nest a little bit further back, so you can make like a 3 Evo wall off like this. 3 building wall off. And then you just buy time by letting him hit the buildings while you get banings out, while you get more queens ready, more units ready. So yeah. But now, like, this timing is... he's like 15 seconds late with this timing, so... you might be able to defend anyways. Even though you have 1 less queen. We'll see. It really hurts that, yeah, you didn't have the queen count. Yeah. Yeah, you defend anyways, so... now you're in a pretty good spot. You lost a lot of queens, that sucks, but you can remake those. And yeah, we would have liked to oversteer scout with this everywhere, just so we see the follow-up. We see the Liberator. We see the Hellions, I believe. Yeah, we have Zerglings over here. Yeah, this is a nice multi-prong by him. But yeah, in general, just like, we're taking a bit more damage than we should right now, just because of how the... like, we could have had a way better defense, right, initially. Yeah, 1 Zergling here to spot for the medevac move out at like 4:05. And then you'll see this medevac coming, and then... yeah. Okay, so now we need to drone really hard, because we took a lot of damage here, overall. But he's going into mech, so we also need to identify that. That's also why this overseer scout is so important, that you get to identify what's coming next. And yeah, here you want to have some Zerglings, so you can spread some Zerglings here and here, check for Hellion move-outs. Yeah, checking for the Hellions like this is really good. Once you kill these Hellions, and you have some vision over here and here, you can just go harass with the Mutas. So yeah, here it's just important that you shouldn't actually get any more Mutas right now. You should just stick to the 9 that you have. And stick with these Mutas. Start upgrades, start double Evo, start baning speed. Start more queens. Start overlord speed and an overseer to bring with your Mutas in case there's widow mines. Get your 4th hatch going. So like right now you should just be staying on this Muta count and get all your upgrades, get your drone count going, and then you can go back into Mutas. Yeah, you start with like 8 to 9 Mutas. Basically whatever you can afford when your Spire finishes up, and then you go into upgrades and droning and stuff like that, and then you go back into Muta production afterwards. So do you know it's mech yet? Yes, you do, because you're getting a rush one. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So yeah, like here, when you know it's mech, you can just stop making Mutas. You can try to premium Mutaling Bane. That is viable versus mech for a while. But in general, I think it's more consistent to transition out of it. And just keep these Mutas, harass as much as you can. You're gonna force him to make Thors, which is nice. They don't really want Thors this early. But you should be droning a lot heavier behind this. And just having Link spotters is good for Hellion move-outs and to see if he actually tries to push you. Yeah, we want to be like on at least 85 drones here. This fully saturated, 5th base on the way. Infestation pitch should probably go down around here. What's up, Alex? Yeah, this is all good. Just our drone count is a little bit less than it should be probably. But overall it ain't too bad. Yeah, we just want to creep spread here. We want to go up to like... to be honest, we could go up to like 100 drones in this scenario. Yeah, and here we want to start morphing banelings. So we have something to clear all the Hellions. And yeah, we already have more than enough Roach Ravager. Like, this is already a bit too much actually. But it's fine as long as you don't make any more. Just make sure you spend your larvae into Zerglings. You might want to consider getting like a macro hatch or two right here, just because from this point on it's really important that you can remake Zerglings whenever you lose them. So you always need to have larvae to spend your money into Zerglings from this point on. So yeah, you should get like a couple of extra hatcheries, new bases, maybe a macro hatch. This upgrade is really important. Where's this mech? Yeah, you're keeping him defensive, which is good. The one thing that's important is just like, if he ever moves out, you want to be with your army right in front of his army. So you can start like forcing him to siege up, you can start running Lingbane into his army to clear out the Hellions, throw Corrosive Bile, wear him down over time. But yeah, if you're maxed out like this, it's fine to try to force some trades. Like if you're maxed out with a bank, it's fine to start like trying to force some trades by running in like this and throwing Biles. Just be careful not to lose these units. It's fine to trade off Lingbane, but these units you want to keep alive. You would want something to spot, so make sure it's not expanding down here. Make sure we keep working on our creep spread. And yeah, we don't want to lose these units, so should be a bit more careful here. We're going into Infestors now, but I think that's a bit too early. You don't really want to go into Infestors if there's like super heavy tank counts and stuff like that. Infestors is what you want when they're like committing more into Thors. If they have like more Thors than they have tanks, then you can start going into Infestor. Or if there's a lot of Cyclones and you want Fungal, then you can add in some Infestors. Yeah, like, and to be honest, you, especially versus Mech, it's really important that you clear all these rocks and like mine these minerals. So instead of this move you went up here, I think it would have been better for you to just stay in the middle of the map here, clear out these rocks. Because Mech really likes these rocks, right? Because they can set up siege tanks behind them. It's harder for you to set up a flank if there's a bunch of rocks everywhere. Siege tanks on the high ground here could be really annoying, right? So, especially versus Mech, you want to make sure you take down any rocks on the map. And yeah, the mutants have kind of served their purpose at this point, so you can just like put them to attack this factory or something, you know, this armory. Just something to distract him when you guys actually fight. So what happened here? So yeah, really important that you stay maxed out all the time. It's fine. So here, yeah, you should just throw Biles and run away. You don't want to ever actually fight with these units. Unless you're gonna crush the fight, right? So here, we're kind of split up. Like, if these rocks were down, then we could just do this and run up here. But, I feel like we're gonna get trapped with some units right now. So yeah, like, this unit starts to eat tank shots. We get somewhat of a trade for it, but we lost a lot of units right there. Like, that was not a good trade. And in general, you don't want to lose your Roach Ravager if you can avoid it. So yeah, in general, like whenever we can, we just want to try to trade off Lingbane while keeping our Roach Ravager alive. Yeah, so also really important that we like respread our creep spread whenever it goes away. Here we lost our queens, it looks like. Yeah, we're rebuilding new ones. That's good, because it's really important that we keep our creep spread going the entire game. So whenever we start losing our tumors, we need to replace them. Yeah, the problem now is just like we haven't really been maxed again, ever since like the fight up here. So yeah, you want to make sure that you get your Roach Ravager count back up to a decent number where you have like 10 of each almost, like 8 to 10 of each, like 8 Roaches, 8 Ravagers. Preferably you would have like only Ravagers, but the thing is, it's nice to have some Roaches to tank for the Ravagers. And also, if you ever end up losing a Ravager, you have Roaches, you can just remake it instantly. We need at least like 8 Ravagers at all times. Yeah, so here, if we're maxed, this push is not really scary, right? Like, if you look at it, it's 16 units. So if we were maxed here, we could just completely crush this push. Yeah, the problem is, like, we've not been maxed here. And you don't want to do this, like, small skirmishers versus mech. You want to fight with your entire army, trade off your Ling Bane, go back, remax, and then fight again, right? So it's really important that you're maxed whenever you're fighting. Well, I would say just, like, the important thing is the Ravagers. And you want to have, like, maybe 20 Roaches and Ravagers in total. But never less than, like, 8 Ravagers, for sure. So yeah, the problem is just we've been bleeding out units, like small fights, which is not really good. And Broodlords, something like about Broodlords in this matchup is, or versus Mech, is you only really ever want to make it's a boring stream. I mean, you're free to leave. It's nobody's forcing you to be here. Anyways, like Broodlords in this matchup versus Mech, you just want to make sure that you only make them if they have like no anti-air. Like if they're on, like, let's say 200 Thor Cyclone, then this is good to go Broodlords. But if there's already Thors out and they have Vikings as well, especially, you don't really ever want to commit to Broodlords, because then you have to commit into Corruptors as well. And basically, like, if you both just play this game and you both sit back and build these units, once he gets up to like 6, 7, 8 Thors, he's not gonna lose a fight. And also, like, yeah, whenever you get the Broodlords, you want to make sure that you just fight right away. And yeah, like you see, like he had 2 Thors here and a couple of Vikings, and the Broodlords don't really do anything. So just avoid making Broodlords if you can. So yeah, like if he's like on 200 tank Cyclone, then you can make these Broodlords just as like a surprise switch, and then you force a fight right away with the Broodlords. But you don't ever want to just transition into like full-on Broodlord and you're actually playing it as a composition and you're like remaking it, right? If you're making Broodlords, you're making it as like a one-time switch. It's like a Muta switch, essentially. It basically has the same function of like remaxing on Mutas, right? You just want to catch them off guard and force a fight right away, and then you don't make any more after that. Alright, you check for warp gate, that's good. Yeah, like again, going into the main like this is a little bit risky. Just because if there was Stalker first or a second unit Stalker, like second unit Stalker, you probably get the Overlord into the corner in time. But versus Stalker first, you would probably lose this Overlord. But on this map, there's no good place to put the Overlord anyways, so it might be fine. I think this is like a optional thing, like if you like to do this, you can do this. I prefer to keep the Overlord alive over here. Check the warp gate, check the second chrono boost and stuff like that, but this is also fine. The problem right now is that you don't know if he chrono boosted his second adept. Like if he chrono boosted his second adept and it moved out, he would be finished right out now, right? So right now you would have 2 adepts coming across the map towards you. And you wouldn't really know. So either you make blind Zerglings or you try to defend with 4 Zerglings versus 2 adepts. That's the only problem I have with this scout. Yeah, so you go the blind Zergling route, which is okay, but hurts your economy a little bit. You see the Stargate, you see Phoenix first, and when you see that he's making a Phoenix in the Stargate, you should just run your Overlord back to the natural. Try to get as much scouting as possible before it dies. Yeah, here you should pull your Overlords back a little bit. Not completely, but you want to make sure that you keep them within that queen range. You want your queens to be able to protect your spotting overlords here when there's a Phoenix or a Void Ray, anything like that. Yeah, we want to send, like this, one of these Zerglings out. Maybe another couple more Zerglings just to spot for potential adept moves and move outs and stuff like that. Yeah, so here we're a little bit in danger, because if this Oracle went straight across the map like this and came in here, we have nothing that's protecting our natural right now. And this Oracle will get like 6-7 drone kills. We only have 3 queens still, which is a bit odd. Why is that? So here, after you've spent these larvae, you should make a queen here. Yeah, so right here you should make your 4th queen. Overlord first, and then 1 more queen. Yeah. Yeah, you want to set your 4th queen here at like 41, 42 supply. And the 5th queen pretty fast after that as well. But the supply lock here kind of hurts now. And then you want to set it up so you have 1 spore plus 1 queen, 2 queens, 2 queens. And then as you add spores later on, you can pull 1 queen away, right? Yeah, you got supply locked here, which is a bit annoying. So like here, when you come here and you see no 3rd base at 4 minutes, I would start a Roach Warren right away. It's kind of a weird build he's playing, where he's playing Probo before 3rd. With triple Stargate units. This is kind of like a super safe but very inefficient build, where if you don't take any damage here, you should be ahead. So yeah, just like 1 Zergling here, 1 Zergling here, 1 Zergling here to check for move outs. You could even patrol a Zergling over here if you want it to be super safe. Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw how many Stargate units he has, but if you ever see him going up to like 3 Stargate units, like 1 or 2 Oracle, 1 Phoenix, or 3 Oracles, stuff like that, you want to make sure like you get like maybe 1 extra spore in the main, and make sure that you have spores in every base and queens in position. Because if he's going like this many Stargate units, he's actually gonna look to try to be quite aggressive with them, and you want to make sure you don't take any damage. So we lose some drones here. Yeah, no spore here is a little bit too greedy right now, I think, here as well. Especially when we're playing versus this many Stargate units. He doesn't really punish us for it too much though. But he had some potential to like kill a lot of drones this game. Going to roaches. What did we scout? We're scouting quite a bit with the solvers here, that's good. We see sentries, so we know he's not going like straight charge shot Archon. Yeah. So yeah, like we saw these gases. Oh, we see that it's mining. But if we know that he has his gases, you can drone up this to like 75 at least. I would probably do a follow-up scout just to check if he starts storm or not. Because in this scenario, when you see that it's not getting storm, well, now he is getting it, but he wasn't initially. So like now, if you come in, you see a 4th base and he's researching storm. Now you should feel very safe just to get your hive, 80 drones at least. Yeah, you're doing all that stuff. This is good. Yeah, not having a spore here is actually like very risky, but hopefully it doesn't punish you for it. So yeah, creep spread is looking pretty good. Drone count's looking decent. Your fifth base could be a lot faster here. Oh, never mind, it is. I'm blind. I actually didn't see it on the minimap. Yeah, it's actually, everything is actually looking pretty good for you so far. Getting lurkers. Did we get the correct upgrade? Yes, we did. Nope. this one should be first, always first. Poking here. It's fine, as long as you don't remake these roaches, it's fine. In general, some better map vision could be good. Just a couple of overlords here to check for prisms like this. But yeah, losing these roaches are fine. To be honest, I think this game you could have definitely been more aggressive with your lurkers. Like, you don't want to lose these, for sure, because you don't want to have to remake them. But you want to be somewhat aggressive. So like while you're doing this, like this run by could be going down to the third base, for example. And then you could be burrowing your lurkers here or here. Like his army is actually like, he actually only has 3 immortals. He can never fight your lurkers once you have the range upgrade. So you could definitely have done something this game with your lurkers. And it's also a good opportunity to throw away your roaches, right? Because you use them to distract him over here. You get your lurkers into position here. And then that should be a pretty good fight for you. Making... Preferably, like, if we're being this passive, I would like to see a bit more drones. Like, maybe like 10 more drones. Just so we start mining out faster and building a bank for spores. Because if we're being this passive, we're accepting that we're going late game, right? Yeah, basically if you're going late game, you want as many drones as possible early on, so you can afford spores, you start building a bank, you mine out your bases faster. But probably want to get a second spire as well pretty fast here. Like as soon as you start getting a bank and you're maxed out, just get a second spire for the upgrades. It's really important. Because at this point, like, we're not doing anything with the ground anymore, right? Like, you already have enough carriers. So yeah, if we had more drones earlier, we probably could have had like a spore line across the map right now and still have this bank. It's good that you keep. You could even like borrow a Zergling here or something. Just leave a Zergling here. Super battery. Yeah, so what you would want to do here is, let's see. Like I said, you would have wanted to have more drones, so you had a bigger bank right now. Have spores here. You don't need 8 more lurkers here. You have more than enough lurkers already. If you have spores here, and then you just get corruptors for the rest, so that you get up to like, yeah, having like 15 lurkers is fine. You don't need more than that. And then rest corruptors. Corruptor spore, and then you could do this ling run by. You could bring like 4 lurkers here with this run by and just have the lurkers poke at the cannons. A couple of hydras with that as well, just so we can't just send like 1 void ray or 1 carrier to clean it up. Like 5, 6, 7 hydras with this. So like you're poking here with like lurker hydra ling, and you're holding this position with spore lurker corruptor. And if he brings his army here to defend, you can aggressively run your lurkers forward, just like picking at his static defense. You just need to be more active, poking at him at different places, splitting up your lurkers. But yeah, very important that you have a spore line. And yeah, never keep your lurkers like just one big clump like this at this point, because he doesn't really have a ground army, right? Like, you can fight off his ground army with this many lurkers easily. Like even this many lurkers can fight off his ground army. So yeah, just make sure that you use the rest of your lurkers on the other side of the map. Yeah. Yeah, it's just this could have been more drones or corruptors, right? It's just basically waste of supply at this point, because they don't really, like the last 10 or like last 8 lurkers doesn't really add anything to your army. Yeah, it's good. And preferably like you would have your spores a bit further forward here. In general, you don't just want to like run in and poke into his army like this. You would be distracting him over here and being aggressive with the lurkers like this, wherever the army is not, right? So if the army is over here, you just stay defensive behind your spores. You poke here. If the army comes over here, you pull back, you go forward over here. And in the entire time while you're doing that stuff, you should be charging with the Corruptor Viper, looking for abducts. But yeah, now we actually kill some lurkers for you. So that's, now you actually have a good number. Maybe like you would want like 1 or 2 more. But overall that's a good number for you. Biggest problem right here, drone count. Super low. You would want this base to be up already. You could potentially be taking this base to put pressure on him to actually do something other than just sitting here. Yeah, you're like, you should be building a bank. Like, you should have a bank similar to his. Just like you traded evenly, right? But you just have had way too little drones this entire game. Yeah, losing these spores like this is not nice, so yeah, we don't want to bring all our lurkers. Like I said, we want to have like half of the lurkers on this side, half over here. Some Ling Hydra with our lurkers up here. We could for sure stop him from expanding. We could probably, like, there's only 2 cannons and a shield battery here. We could bust this base for sure. So yeah. Upgrades on our corruptors are okay, but preferably, like I said, double spire earlier. So we can have like 3-3 by now, basically. You can add in a couple of infestors if you want as well. Just like for Fungling High Templars, and you can use Burrow and Neural later on. Once it comes down to actually fighting. Because like the entire goal here is like, you want to force him to attack into you. Like you don't really ever want to fight into his army away from your spores. Or close to his statically, so you want to be making moves on this side of the map, taking this base, forcing him to actually do something, right? Because right now there's no pressure for him to do anything. He just wants to sit here, mine this base, go to this side, mine this base. Like if he mines the same amount of resources than you, then he's gonna win, because he's gonna have shield batteries and Tempest, and you won't be able to trade cost efficiently versus that. So you need to mine more resources than he does. And force him to take bad fights by attacking into your spores. Yeah, so here, if he doesn't mess up, this will never be a good fight for you, because he has vision of your army with the Oracle. He has Tempest that outranges everything. He has feedback that outranges your lurkers and your Vipers, I believe. Maybe they're the same range, lurkers and feedback. Anyways, you want to make sure that, like, if you're doing this stuff, like, you should never get anything off if there's only this happening, right? Like, if he gets to focus on only this, you should never really get anything down. For some reason, he's not making static. Like, with this bank, he should have, like, a wall of shield batteries. Like, this area should be covered in shield batteries and cannons, basically. Same over here. He should be starting to do it over here, so you want to be making stuff happen in multiple places, and then you can go in for abducts, like this when he's distracted, right? But yeah, like, this ends up being a really good fight for you, I think. Yeah, it does, because he, for some reason, he didn't have any static. It's a big mistake by him. Now it looks really good for you, yeah. I mean, he GG'd yourself with a big bank. Yeah. Yeah, I think if he just had like a wall of static here, this shouldn't really work. But he didn't, so he got overwhelmed. Okay, everything looks good so far. You should pull 1 drone out of gas after starting Ling speed. So here you should pull 1 out. It's just more efficient, because like, you need minerals here more than you need gas, and you'll still be able to start your Bailing Nest on time. What can you scout with the first Overlord? Well, not too much really. Like, you can only really check to see like the hatchery timing, to see, okay, everything is normal. You can check the drone count to see if he's like keeping 3 on gas or not, because he will have 1 less drone than you here if he keeps 3 on gas. And if he's keeping 3 on gas, it could potentially be more likely that he's doing like 2 base, because normally you pull 1 out of gas if you're going for like a normal game like this. So you scout everything. Yeah, the problem right now is, okay, you're making 6 Sterlings, so that's fine. Yeah, I was gonna say you don't have any Sterlings at home, but 6 Sterlings is fine. Shouldn't make too much more than that though. You want to make sure you get drones out. So the biggest problem here is like you haven't been making drones. You want to be spamming SD in the early game. Make sure you spend all your drones into larva as soon as possible. Supply block kind of hurts. Yeah, the biggest problem so far is just that you've been floating larva throughout this. So that's gonna be like a lot. You could have had a lot more drones mining throughout this. And you didn't have any vision down here, so this push at your third kind of came as a surprise, right? So you need to have, like, move this overlord down here a bit, move this overlord over here, maybe put a third overlord down here somewhere. Because this wasn't really a problem, right? Like, you had Zerglings, you had Banelings. But to be honest, this is not the best Muda map because it's very short rush distance, so you can get all in very easily. But yeah, in general, like just having vision for this thing comes across the map, you should have no problem keeping your third alive here. So yeah, now you're very far behind. Yeah, we're going Muda now, but we're playing from quite far behind, so like we're gonna have a very hard time holding any all in. And even if he just goes into a Mech game from here, it's still gonna be pretty rough. So yeah, the biggest thing here was just like you didn't have vision. There's not much else. Like you had enough units, you had your links. Like the supply block kind of hurt as well, obviously. Actually, you did see the move out. So there was a supply block that screwed you over the most. Maybe making 4 Banelings is a bit much, maybe 3 is enough. I'm gonna be out here. Maybe we want to pull this queen towards the third base to help out. But yeah, the biggest thing was your serious supply locked here. If you weren't supply locked, I think you hold this serve 100%. Yeah, I guess the overload speed is a mistake, right? Since we're playing Muda, we don't really want overload speed. We want to be saving our gas for Spire. Yeah, we also want to get an overseer with our lair here, especially since we made overload speed. Just to scout to see what he's doing. Like, is he going up to the 6 gases, droning up, getting a 4th, or is he doing like a roach all-in? If you knew what he was doing right now, you would probably be making spines here. Like, walling off here, making like 6 spines behind this, because he is even in drones. And you're getting Muta, which is like great for you if you just survive. But if you get Mutas out before he attacks, then it's still good for you. Yeah. This position you might have to give up your third. Yeah, so here when he's doing this push with like Ravaging Bane, or Roachling Bane I mean, you would preferably already have this upgrade. Like you should start this after your lair, essentially, before your Spire. And here, like when you see this push coming, you're gonna have to accept that your third might probably die here. And just send the links to counterattack. Or alternatively, you target down the Banelings with the Mutas, and then you use the links to try to defend. Both are viable because he's kind of pushing like he's doing like a half-assed push, right? Like he's leaving units at home. He's getting spores and queens behind this. He's not really fully committed, right? But if he was like fully committing here with everything, bringing the roaches, bringing the queens, you would just counterattack with the links, give up your third, maybe make spines here. You could try to sneak up an expansion like up here in the meantime. But yeah, here you should just, in this specific situation, you should just target down the Banelings, and then you can fight this probably. Yeah, you end up losing your third. But to be honest, it's not the end of the world here. It's more so important that you don't take damage from this, which we end up doing. Yeah, so just a bit of lacking map vision, right? We don't have any vision in the middle of the map, so we're basically dealing with this, and then we get hit by these Zerlings, right? If we had vision for this, we would probably have dealt with it a lot easier. Yeah, and again, the big thing is that we don't have this upgrade, because we want to get to +2 melee as fast as possible, so our banelings will one-shot drones. That's very important when you're playing Ling Bane Muda. We're doing good moves. We should be droning super hard behind this. We want to get up to like 80 drones here. Depending on what he's doing, like if he's all-inning us, we could just make Muda Ling Bane and crush the push. But if he is like getting up to Lurker or Infestor or something like that, then we would just want to drone here. Yeah, right now we're in a pretty decent spot. The problem is like we're still very low on drones, right? So a couple of extra queens so we can inject these bases. You have one here. Just injecting, droning. Play Muda Ling Bane. And here you have some options, right? You can either just play Muda Ling Bane. You just stick on that composition for a really long time. Keep running like massive amounts of banelings into his mineral lines. Make sure he doesn't get a 4th base up. Like really commit to the Muda Ling Bane. Alternative number 2 is getting a hive and going into ultras, and just do the same thing where we kind of just rolling in banelings into mineral lines, keep building our Muda count up while getting into ultras, try to deny his 4th, or the last option is that you get +2 as fast as possible, you do some baneling run-bys into mineral lines, you harass with the Mudas, and meanwhile behind this you're transitioning into Hydra, Lurker, Viper. So after +2 finishes a melee, you're going to ground upgrades, you get your Hydra Den, you get your Hive, you get your Lurker Den. So you're basically just like containing him and harassing him with Muda Ling Bane while you're transitioning into Hydra, Lurker, Viper of like 80 drones. Those are like the 3 viable options here when playing Mudas. I would say like the last option is probably the most solid one overall. But if, to be honest, all 3 of them can work for sure. You can kind of pick and choose. If you choose to stick to the composition, you need to make sure that you can never let him actually get his 4th base up and mine from it without taking damage. You need to constantly be running banelings into mineral lines with +2 melee. You need to make sure that you have an overseer to deny creep. Make it really hard for him to take his 4th base. How do you scout his army? Like, you should get scouting when you're rolling banelings in. You can also use changelings. Your Mudas should get information when you're poking around. Just by being active with your units is the way you're going to get information in this case. And if he ever moves out with an army like this, like to be honest right now, if you had 15 banelings with speed and you just roll into this, you just win the game right now. Even though like your drone count is way lower than it should be. You're in a pretty good spot this game just because of how he like did a half-committed push, lost all his units, and didn't have that many drones before. But yeah, like in general, you should just be super active with your Mudas, doing baneling run-bys. And to be honest, like if you saw that he had this army, there's no Lurkers, there's no Vipers, there's no Infestors, you can just roll banelings into this and win the game. Like you hit this base with like 15 banelings, some speedlings, and Mudas, you just kill all the Hydras with the banelings, and then the game kind of ends. Because he doesn't really have any anti-air. But yeah, in general, just like better map vision for sure. Like you have overload speed, you should also get overload speed, so you have a speed overseer with this Muda clump to deny creep spread. Vision down here, deny the space. Constant like Ling Bane run-bys into mineral lines should be happening. That's why you also want 80 drones, because you want to be constantly just sending in small groups of Ling Bane. Or preferably just banelings. But yeah, he's already struggling really hard to deal with this. And he has really nothing that deals with like banelings. So when you engage this army, you just want to make sure that you have like somewhat of a flank setup. And like to be honest, I think your Mudas would just win this fight straight up. But with the banelings, like you're just gonna crush this fight super hard. As long as you get like some connections with the Hydras, yeah. Like your Mudas could just straight up fight this super easily. The upgrades kind of suck for you. Like you would a bit down on upgrades, but even with 2-1, he doesn't have enough Hydras to actually contest your Mutas. So yeah, here, like again, you should have been on a way higher drone count. You probably should have been like on 5th, 6th base even. And then the game would just be super over. It still looks pretty over, because he doesn't have a 4th. He doesn't really have a transition. You can just, all he can do is go home and do the same again. While your Muta count gets bigger, your upgrades get better. So yeah. The biggest thing is just that the entire game your drone count was too low. So you couldn't really afford to do any Baning run-bys, which is like the strongest style of the Muta. The whole idea is that you're denying vision with the Mutas. You deny all the creep spread, all the overlords. You're harassing with the Mutas everywhere, and at the same time there's like Banelings running into his mineral lines. Because you don't really need to micro the Banelings, you can just kind of just run them into his mineral lines and they're gonna kill drones. So the whole idea is that you want to pull him apart and do damage before he gets to stabilize with like lurkers and infestors, right? Yeah. Like you can have like an overseer over here, or like have overseers around his base, just in case he goes for like Roach Burrow or something like that. That's fine. But yeah, in general, you can be pretty greedy behind this, because if he ever moves out, all you need to do is have like a couple of speed Banelings that connect with his Hydras, and like once you have enough Hydras to Mutas to beat his Hydras, he just can't push anymore, right? How many Mutas do go for a normal game? Like if you're committing to Lingbane Muta, and like let's say you're going into Hydra, you probably always want to go up to like 20 Mutas, I think. At least 20 Mutas. But if you're like sticking to Muta Lingbane, you want to make as many Mutas as possible. Unless there's like Vipers. Yeah, now the game is over. GG.